We did our project on World Trade Center Towers 1 and 2 by Brandon, Jared, Chris, and Jonathan. The background of the World Trade Center buildings 1 and 2, or otherwise known as the Twin Towers, is the construction started in 1966. Tower 1, known as the North Tower, was 1,368 feet tall and finished in 1970. Tower 2, the South Tower, was 1,362 feet tall and finished in 1971. There were 110 stories each and had about 10 million square feet. It was the world's tallest building when built, and they were part of a 7-building complex. The first skyscraper to be built without masonry. In total, there was 50,000 workers with over 200,000 daily visitors. It was the hub of the financial district and a top tourist attraction. It was a symbol of America's focus on the future and progress. In 1939, New York World's Fair had World Trade Center exhibit dedicated to world peace through world trade. The construction design was a novel frame tube design by Minoru Yamasaki and allowed for more usable floor space for the occupants. The building's core houses the elevators, utility shafts, restrooms, 3 stairwells, and other support spaces. The core of each tower contained 47 columns that went from bedrock to the top. The materials were 4-inch thick, lightweight concrete on a fluted steel deck. And there was a grid of lightweight bridging trusses and main trusses that supported each floor to prevent inward or outward bowing of columns. The fireproofing was a hard coat, which was more sustainable in the areas of vibration and erosion, which was applied to the central core columns and elevator shafts. Then the spray-on fireproofing was for the floor trusses, exterior walls, and columns. Design and construction flaws. The studies from the NIST showed that the buildings were not actually flawed in their design. The buildings were built to code and maintained appropriately throughout the years. After 1993, the buildings were updated with the proper fireproofing materials. The frame tube structures had the stairwells and elevator shafts in the middle. This created an area for potential vertical fire movement, and the lightweight construction and tubed framing allowed for jet fuel and fires to travel and ignite on numerous floors at once. Per an engineer that was investigating the 9/11 disaster, he found the floor trusses were flimsy, and they were built to withstand high winds but not impacts. Fewer stairwells required due to new codes at the time of construction. The stairwells were narrow, which slowed down victims trying to escape and first responders coming up with their gear. The code and regulations applied when they were built. When World Trade Center 1 and 2 were built, the codes and regulations were from New York City were applied. There were newer versions of these building codes being drafted, and the architectural engineers were told to use those drafts when designing WTC 1 and 2. The number of stairwells required was reduced from 6 to 3, and the doors leading to the stairs were reduced from 44 inches to 36 inches wide. There was 1-hour fire rating reduction on structural components, and the shaft walls and core walls had reduced their fire rating from 3-hour to 2-hour. The aircraft impact on the Twin Towers. They were designed to be safe from a Boeing 707 jet impact traveling at 600 miles per hour. However, the heavier and slower Boeing 757 struck World Trade Center 1 at 470 miles per hour and World Trade Center 2 at 590 miles per hour. Of the 287 total columns, 16% were damaged on impact, causing higher stress and load transfer. The floor system damage consists of structural integrity, including partial removal of the floor system, dislodging of fireproofing. The bolts connecting to the floor trusses to exterior columns failed, causing floors to collapse. The stairwell damage, partitioned walls and 2-hour fire rating, but little structural integrity was left. The World Trade Center 1 and 2, 2 of the 3 stairwells were impassable. The concrete fragments created as air pushed out like a giant bellow of floors as floors collapse. And here's images of the collapse showing the dust cloud. Fire was definitely a contributing factor. World Trade Center 1 and 2 had fireproofing cementitious cladding effective up to 600 degrees Celsius. However, the impact vibrations dislodged the insulation, reducing the yield strength to 300 degrees Celsius. Fire reached above 800 degrees Celsius due to a sudden release of a third of the 10,000-gallon fuel and impact kinetic energy causing explosion. The sprinkler system also failed, being severed, having the severed water lines due to the impact, which created a longer, hotter burn, and also the increased ventilation. The heat transfer created expansion, which created the floor joist to buckle, triggering inward bowing of perimeter columns, leading to multi-floor collapse. The command center rights and wrongs. The command center was actually moved to World Trade Center Building Number 7 by Mayor Giuliani. However, the radio systems failed frequently there. The police and fire commanders were not able to communicate efficiently, and the firefighters' radios failed constantly, just as it did 8 years ago when responding to the bomb threat in 1993. And the different companies did not check in with their chiefs, which led to an unknown number of firefighters in the towers. The industry code and regulation changes after 9/11. Elevators required in high-rise buildings more than 120 feet tall, so firefighters can get to and fight fires without having to walk up from the ground floor with all their heavy equipment. An additional stairway for high-rises that are more than 420 feet tall. In lieu of the additional stairway, an option to provide elevators that can be used by the building's occupants for emergency evacuation without waiting for assistance from emergency personnel. There was a higher standard for fire resistance rating in high-rise buildings more than 420 feet tall. There was required more robust fireproofing for buildings more than 75 feet tall, which will be less likely to be dislodged by impacts or explosions. Shafts that are enclosing elevators and exit stairways need to have impact-resistant walls. Also, self-luminous exit pathway markings in all exit stairways that provide a lighted pathway when both primary and secondary lighting fails. Radio systems within the building to allow emergency personnel to better communicate within the building and with the emergency staff outside the building. The aftermath of 9/11, 2,763 people were killed by the crash, by the fire and collapses. Overall, there were 2,192 civilians, 343 firefighters, and 71 police officers, and also airplane passengers and hijackers. Over $10 billion in property damage, a massive hit to the stock market, and took 9 months of working around the clock to clean it up. There was the 9/11 toxic dust exposure was linked to different cancers and illnesses, and there was a victims' compensation fund passed by Congress for this. This created a massive change in how emergency departments communicate and work together. Here's an image of the 9/11 Memorial Museum Tribute of Lights and all of our references. Thank you.